This is the plaintiff, Margaretta Dobbs. She says she brought her car to the defendant's repair shop to get an oil change. And when she brought it home, she noticed oil in her driveway. She brought the car back and they charged her $142.05 for a diagnostic and told her she had multiple leaks and a loose wire connection. Well, why in the world didn't he tell her that when she had her oil changed? When she complained, the manager kicked her out and told her never to return. The defendants are as wrong as two left shoes, and she's suing them. These are the defendants, Ed Bressler and Adam Valentine. Adam says he would have been more than happy to fix any problems they may have caused to the plaintiff's car at their expense. But the plaintiff didn't like what she heard when they ran the diagnostic. She had a faulty connector to the starter and some oil leaks unrelated to an oil change. The woman went on a terrible rant against their poor cashier about having to pay for a diagnostic. And here they are. They're accused of being slippery.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket. The plaintiff says she brought her car into the defendant for an oil change. When she got it home, it was leaking in her driveway like crazy, so she wants a refund. But the defendant says the plaintiff's oil leaks have nothing to do with the oil change he performed. It's the case of being slippery.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Okay, Ms. Dobbs, you took your car in to Evans Chrysler in order to do what?
I first took it there because I had a recall for the seatbelt. And I said, since my recall, I might as well get my oil change. So I had my oil change, and then I brought my car home.
All that was on May 27th?
Correct.
Okay.
And then I went outside, and I saw a leak in my driveway. And I'm going like,
when did you go outside and see a leak in your driveway?
It was like 2 days later.
Okay.
And I got on my knees and I crawled under the car. And so I said, this is awful thin. What is going on here? I called them first. And they told me, I told the car wouldn't start and I couldn't drive the car there. And so I had to get a tow truck. And so they told me if I towed the car there and if they have to tow it into the bay, they would have to charge me for a diagnostic. And I told her, I'm not paying a diagnostic. And she said that, well, this is what we have to do. So she told me the car started. They pulled it into the bay. And then when they called me up on the phone, and they told me that I had multiple oil leaks and that I had a loose connector. Well, if I had multiple oil leaks, when I took my car in, they have a paper that I sent you where they did the vehicle multi-point inspections, and there would have been oil all underneath my chassis if there would have been.
Hold on one second and let me see that vehicle multi-point inspection. Okay, I see that document.
Under the vehicle, under the vehicle checkup.
Okay, so go on.
See, I purchased that engine. It was a rebuilt engine, reconditioned, built engine.
Okay, but with all due respect, I don't need to hear that. What I really want to hear is from you folks at Evan Chrysler, Mr. Bressler and Mr. Valentine. Well, actually, the person I want to talk to is, did either one of you do the repair?
No, neither one was technicians.
Okay.
It was one of our technicians.
Nobody here's a technician. Everybody's brass.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So she brings it in. There's a seatbelt recall that gets taken care of, and she says, I need an oil change. And you guys do this multi-point under the carriage inspection. And then within 5 days, she has oil leaking. She's mad that she had to bring it back to you because the things you're charging her for diagnosing are things that she feels should have been spotted in the multi-point undercarriage inspection. What say you to that?
For clarity purposes, the multi-point inspection is just that. It's a visual inspection. It does not include any kind of diagnostics or it's a recommendation sheet.
When you do that, because you make it look you make it look glossy and pretty to us with little dots all over the place and so what is that multi-point under the carriage inspection? You stick your head in between the concrete and the car, you don't put it up on a thing.
it's while the vehicle is in the air. It's just a visual inspection.
Oh, it is while okay.
Yeah, it's not an all-inclusive inspection, but if you look at the document, you'll
Okay,
see
I
the
want you to tell me the
red
difference
button.
between that and a diagnostic. What's the difference? You're telling me, oh, there's a big difference. Tell me what the difference is.
This particular diagnostic, first and foremost, would start with checking the battery to see if there's battery voltage. If you have battery voltage, then there's basically a diagnostic tree that's in the service manuals that they would follow. Now, unfortunately, I don't know every single step of that off the top of my head.
More or less, is that a visual or is that something you hook up to a machine or how do you check that?
You would actually have to hook up a machine to the vehicle to check the
Got
battery
it.
voltage.
Battery check. What's the next thing you check in that diagnostic?
What, depending on, what the findings were, which I'm sure in this case it would have been that the battery had a full charge on it. You would check to see if you're getting power out of the ignition switch, to see if that is sending basically a signal to the starter, to telling the starter to engage, which it was. And then from there, he went to check the starter itself. And when he did that test, then that's when he found that the power feed wire going to the starter was corroded, and that was the issue with the intermittent no start. So that's when she was presented with an estimate to repair that connection, and she declined said repair.
Okay, now her other complaint was I saw oil underneath my car. So what was that about? Do you know from the diagnostic?
We didn't do any further diagnostics. Just again, when the vehicle was up in the air, the technician just noted that it had multiple oil leaks. The next step in that.
So her complaint is, if I have a bunch of oil leaks, when you did an oil change, why did you not bring it to my attention and address it then? So my question to you is, when you look at this multi-point inspection sheet, what would be the answer to that?
Well, if you look at the inspection sheet, there's nothing on there that is indicative to leaks. There's air filter, fluid levels, and so on and so forth, but there's nothing on there that states that we're going to do a diagnostic, if you will, for any kind of a leak or anything like that.
Is there a space on that multi-point inspection to note that there are leaks or no? Is there a dot for oil leaks that didn't get marked?
No, there is not a dot for oil leaks. If you look at the document.
Right, and the oil leaks that your fellow saw, where were those oil leaks? Like, in other words, in the diagnostic that does happen on June 4th, he says, actually, you call what you did on June 4th a vehicle multi-point inspection. And number 2 on the June 4th document says has several oil leaks, nothing to do with the oil change. Where were those oil leaks?
That I don't know. The next step would have been is to put dye in the oil and run the engine to see where that dye was potentially coming out. That was presented to her, and you can see on that line 2, the very last thing was customer declined.
But Jerry, who did the actual work, he would know where he saw the oil leaks, right, on June 4th.
I mean, let's just say, for example, you have an oil leak at the top of the engine that's running down. Now, you could have a leak there as well as at the bottom of the engine that is masked by the oil coming from the top of the engine. I mean, the proper way to diagnose an oil leak, again, would be to put dye in the oil, run the engine, and see where that dye is coming out of. Then you can properly diagnose whether you have one or multiple leaks or so on and so forth.
So tell me, when the layperson hears it's an oil leak, they think it's coming from where you changed the oil. That is inaccurate.
Right. Right. And
am I correct? So it can come, the oil leak can be manifesting itself in different places through the engine.
Yeah, correct. Right. That was why we told her, let's get the vehicle in, and any towing and inspection or diagnostics would be up to her, but if it was related to the repairs we had performed, we would gladly absorb the towing and the cost of the inspection and repairs if it was in relationship to anything we had previously done.
Okay, so now when they bring the car in, Ms. Dobbs, they do tell you, listen, it's going to be 142 whatever unless we determine that it was our fault, right?
No, they did not say that.
Wait, when you brought it in on June 4th, what did you think was going to happen and how much did you think it was going to cost you?
It wasn't going to cost me anything. They told me it would cost me if they had to tow my car into the bay. And so my car did not have to be towed into the bay.
Do you have her authorization for the 142 something for the diagnostic
No,
in
I did
writing?
not.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. Direct me to the original repair order.
The very first document you're looking at, the one with the handwritten notes on it, that is the original invoice. That paperwork right there. If you
Okay.
stop right there, that's
Hold
the
on one second.
original
I got it.
repair
I got it. I just found her signature. So I'm looking at this document, Ms. Dobbs, and is that not your signature on the bottom of the document?
That is my signature, but that was after I had came back and they told me they wasn't.
But I don't
gonna
think
give me
that's
my
truthful.
car.
What you're saying right now cannot, okay. You know, you're saying, oh, I signed that after they gave me the bill, except I'm looking at the document and I have it up here, which happens after the bill, which is the document that has the tax and everything else. And what they say here is that you refused to sign, which does sound consistent with someone being angry that they ended up having to pay it. The document that does have your signature, which is this one, I believe was something presented to you beforehand. There was a receptionist that, according to you guys, she was berating. Tell me about that.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Will the plaintiff finally get her money back? Will this be oil's well that ends well? Let's find out.
Where's that receptionist? Is she there today?
No, she's off today.
No.
Okay, so go on. Tell me what, did either one of you hear what happened? Were you present for it or no?
Yes, well, the way it's set up is we have glass off, so I could hear what was going on. Long story short, when she went in and the cashier asked her to pay the bill, she didn't want to pay the bill. So that's when I went in there and I told her, look, the only way we're going to release the vehicle is if you pay the bill. And she was just very loud, and it was not our cashier's fault. Our cashier was just a cashier.
And how did that end up?
I went into the cashier's office and asked her if she could please tone it down and just pay the invoice, and she could remove her car from the property at that point.
Okay, and Ms. Dobbs, you tell me your version of how that went down.
Okay, when he came in, the cashier said she's not talking at me or being mean at me or anything. And then he told me to get off of the property and never come back there again. And I told him, I have a voice that carries. And I told him I have a job that I have.
I know your pain. Yeah, I know your pain.
So, and then, you know, she said, she's not bothering me. If that's why he's making sure she's not there.
Okay.
And if the cashier was there,
so,
and if she felt she wasn't gonna lose her job, she would tell you that.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you that I believe you on that, only because you're trying so hard to get me to believe you that it sounds like it matters to you if people think you're polite. But one of the things, and I just wanted to follow up and ask you, you had said in your complaint was, I would never berate someone because I am a woman of the cloth. How are you a woman of the cloth?
I'm an ordained elder in the AMEZ church, and I have been ordained for years.
Okay. What I think happened, and this is what typically happens, is that they tell you if it's our fault, you won't have to pay, and then they conclude it's not their fault, and then maybe you're not happy about that. But from what I'm looking at in all of this paperwork, it is very different to do a diagnostic than to do that undercarriage inspection. They're not hooking it up to machines. They're not looking at just a visual in the undercarriage inspection that happens May 27th when all you've asked is, hey, there's nothing wrong with my car, just change my oil. But it's very different when they're looking for what is the cause of the problem. And you said something in your complaint, which is, that's not true because I took it to a different mechanic and there's nothing wrong with my car. Can you show me something from a different mechanic that says there's nothing wrong with your car?
No, I took it to a mechanic and he told me there is, and right now.
Do you have that in writing? I cannot go by what.
I should have went back and got it from her. But what I wanted to tell you about that document is that the advisor, she told me the only way they would charge me if they had to pull my car into the bay, if it would not start. And they did not have to pull my car into the bay. The car started and it drove itself in there.
I'm sorry, you got it. Hold on, who told you that the car started?
This girl named Michelle, which is the advisor.
Let's assume that that's true. If the car started, did you want them to just call you and say, come pick up your car, it started, and hang up? Or did you want them to inspect your car? That's what this charge is for, and I'm finding in favor of the defendants. That's my verdict.
So the plaintiff does not prevail in this case. Ms. Dobbs, let me ask you what you think about what the judge just had to say. You lost the case.
I think the judge was wrong because Evans and Rena Dodge is telling a lie, and that is not what happened. And if they had their people there, and if I had an oil leak, there should have been oil underneath my carriage that should have shown the oil. And you heard him say that he did not check to see why my oil was leaking. And that was the whole thing. The reason the car went back there is to check and tell me where this oil leak was supposed to be at. And I think the judge was wrong, point blank.
All right, so the plaintiff loses. Let's talk to the defendants now, Mr. Bressler and Valentine. Number one, have you ever told people before never to come back, get off of the property and never come back again? You don't have to do that very often, do you?
No, we don't have to do that very often. It just depends on the demeanor of the customer, and we have other customers here, and we're just trying to make sure that everybody has a pleasant experience.
Well, look, it looked like you bent over backwards to help her out. So in any event, congratulations. You prevail in the lawsuit, and you don't have to pay that money. And that'll do it. Now it's time for another session of After the Verdict.
Well, modern cars are really not like the old cars way back when, where if you could turn a wrench, maybe you could change your own oil and diagnose some things at home.
Didn't you just try changing a? Actually, you did. You changed a battery in our car.
Yeah, I changed the battery. Yes.
I kept yelling at you. You're a judge. You're not a mechanic. Get out of there.
But that probably saved a few bucks. But at the end of the day, we put a lot of faith in our mechanics. They have the computer diagnostic machines to plug in like this, and it seemed like as you were sorting through this case, it occurred to you that a loose wire like that can be an intermittent problem with starting. One day it'll start, the next day it won't start until you get it squared away.
Right. Which is actually kind of consistent with what they diagnose, which is you need a new starter because the connection's loose or whatever.
Right, and the reality is a shop like this, whether it's Chrysler or whether it's a small oil change place, they're not really making money just changing oil, but they try to diagnose other things, they give you the inspection, they look it over, and if they see other things, they end up making money maybe on those things. But really, on an evidentiary basis, this case came down to she didn't have expert testimony to say that they did follow up, that there's something something was amiss, that they missed, or they did something unnecessary.
If she really had taken it to another mechanic, she should have had a report by him saying there's nothing wrong with the starter, there's nothing wrong with this, and there's nothing wrong with that. I would find that hard to believe because her car didn't start and she had to get it towed.
Right.
So
seems like they really didn't do anything wrong.
I don't think they did. It took me a while to understand that the oil would leak elsewhere. Like I was just thinking that there's one place where oil is, but then
leak from a head gasket.
Of course, because the oil is traveling through the engine, and
Right.
So yeah. So I know it's annoying, and people end up having big bills that they can't afford or don't want to have to pay. But did you believe also that that document was something that she signed beforehand?
I believe she did.
Yeah.
And that's the conclusion you made as well.
Yeah.
Hey, we have a love-hate relationship with our mechanics, just like so many other people. When they have the knowledge and we really don't, it's like
you're at their mercy.
You've got a lot of faith and
our doctors and our
trust.
mechanics.
Exactly.
My lawn looks horrible, and I know it's because my landscaper is slacking off. Can I use pictures of my lawn as evidence in court to not pay him for his bad services? Well, you can definitely bring pictures in if the lawn is brown and if the grass isn't growing and green. The issue is you got to prove that the landscaper did something wrong. And if you can't prove that, you're going to lose the case. So you may want to get another landscaper to look at it to see if something is amiss. You probably need some kind of an expert for this because sometimes lawns just don't grow.